Hello, everyone. In today's story, we'll hear about a woman who, right after stamping her signature on the divorce papers, immediately cancelled all 15 authorized user cards associated with her ex-husband's account. At that very moment, the ex-husband was busy booking a lavish engagement party totaling $100,000 for his mistress, but a single phrase from the master of ceremonies froze him in his tracks. Friends, there are crossroads in life we wish to avoid, and divorce is perhaps one of the most painful. After 20 long years dedicated to her family, the only thing left in the hands of Audrey, the protagonist of our story, was a thin sheet of paper, heavy with countless sorrows, a divorce certificate. But what is special about this story is not in the tears or desperate pleas. The story begins the moment her ex-husband, Robert, hurriedly got into his car with his mistress, turning his back on the woman with whom he had shared half his life. In that instant, there was no breakdown, just a terrifying silence, like an iceberg that, after enduring immense pressure, was finally beginning to crack. Instead of sinking into sadness, Audrey chose a different path. She transformed her pain into strength, her years of patience into a meticulously calculated plan for reclaiming what was hers. From cancelling the cards she had provided to her husband's entire family, to facing those who took her sacrifices for granted, every one of her steps was a shout proclaiming her own worth. The story we are about to hear is not simply one of property recovery, but the journey of a woman who, having decided to live for herself, is rediscovering her true self. It is a narrative full of dramatic and unexpected twists, emerging from the darkness of betrayal toward the light of freedom, leaving us with deep lessons about the human heart. I tightly gripped the folder containing my newly nullified marriage certificate. Only a few minutes had passed since I left the counter at City Hall, and the paper still seemed to retain some warmth. As I stopped on the building steps, a cold wind forced me to tighten my coat. I had rushed out that morning wearing too little, so my body was chilled, but my heart was burning more than ever. It was as if a rock that had weighed me down for years had finally been lifted. Robert walked faster than I did. As soon as the procedure was over, he abruptly turned and got into a car parked by the curb, not even rolling down the window. Through the tinted glass, I managed to see a young woman in a pink jacket sitting in the passenger seat. I didn't have to think hard to know it was his mistress, Holly. I didn't feel anger. On the contrary, I felt liberated. 20 years of marriage, from the first day full of hope to total disintegration, were coming to an end today. I took out my cell phone and turned on the screen. My fingers, without the slightest hesitation, opened the bank app. A while ago, Robert had told me he needed liquidity for his business, and he asked me to apply for a primary card in my name, and then issue several authorized user cards for him and his family. Back then, without thinking twice, I gave him 15. One for him, one for his sister, Zoe, and even several for his drinking buddies. Thinking about it now, I was a complete idiot. I let them play with my credit as if it were a toy. I went into the associated card management menu. The last 4 digits of all 15 cards clearly appeared, and next to each one, the word active. I stared intently at the one he used most frequently, ending in 8886. He always said those numbers brought him luck, but I knew that last month he had used that very card to buy his mistress a handbag worth more than $3,000. I bit my lip and pressed the Cancel Association button. The system asked for confirmation. Without hesitating for a second, I accepted. A message immediately popped up. The association of the card, ending in 8886, has been successfully cancelled. This card can no longer be used. Reading it, I felt as if an enormous weight had been lifted from my soul. I continued cancelling all 15 cards, one by one, without missing a single one. With each cancellation, a notification arrived, and the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Ding, ding. That sound was sweeter than any melody. As I finished cancelling the last card, I received a voice message via WhatsApp from my best friend, Leslie. Her voice sounded excited. "Audrey, girl, you won't believe what I've got for you. A regular client at my shop is the event manager at a big hotel here in Los Angeles, and she just called me to say she saw your ex. He was there with some young girl booking an engagement party, and the nerve of him asking for a massive bash costing $100,000. He said it had to be a huge affair for the 18th of next month." I held the phone and couldn't help but smile. How timely, I thought. While he, on one side, was dreaming of a wonderful future with his mistress, I, on the other, was cutting off his cash flow. I replied to Leslie, "I know. Thanks, Leslie. You'll see. Today he won't even be able to pay the deposit for the reservation." I sent the message, put the phone in my pocket, tucked the folder into my purse, and headed home. My steps were light as a feather. Before, every time I passed near City Hall, I would think, what if the day comes when we can no longer be together? Now that that day had arrived, I felt strangely at peace. On the way home, I saw a stand selling roasted pecans. I stopped and bought a cone. The warmth of the nuts in my hands comforted me to the depths of my soul. From now on, I told myself, I am going to live for me. Not 30 minutes after I arrived home, someone started banging on the door as if they wanted to knock it down. Then I heard the shrill voice of my ex-sister-in-law, Zoe. "Audrey Miller, open the door right now. Do you think you can hide in there?" I was about to throw a pecan shell in the trash when I heard her voice and frowned. It was clear that Robert, seeing his cards didn't work, had gone running to his sister. I washed my hands and went toward the door, but I didn't open it right away. "Who is it?" I asked through the door. "If you have something to say it from out there." "Why are you hitting the door like that?" "Who do you think it is?" Zoe's voice sounded increasingly impatient. "Open up now. My brother is making a fool of himself at the hotel because of you. If you don't fix this right now, you'll be sorry." I sighed and opened the door. Zoe was standing on the threshold. She wore a flashy floral print dress, her hair teased up like a lion's mane, heavy makeup, and blood-red lipstick. In her hand, a shiny handbag that I recognized instantly, one she had bought with my card. Before I could invite her in, she slipped inside and tossed the handbag onto the sofa. The metallic chain hit the coffee table with a jarring clang, and my old cat, frightened, hid under the sofa. Zoe stood with her hands on her hips, her chest puffed out, and her eyes wide. "Have you gone completely crazy?" "My brother just called me. He says that when he went to pay the wedding deposit, none of the cards worked. He called the bank, and they told him that the main account holder had cancelled all the associated cards." "Who else could it be but you?" I crossed my arms and stared straight at her. "Yes, it was me. So what?" "So what? So what?" Zoe yelled, as if she had heard the most absurd thing in the world. "My brother has been using those cards for years, and so have I. Just last week I saw a pair of shoes I was planning to buy this week. Do you just feel like cancelling them and cancel them just like that?" "Who do you take us for?" I laughed scornfully. I went to the study and took a stack of documents from a drawer. They were the original contracts from when I applied for the cards. I had always kept them as proof, just in case. I threw the papers onto the table and pointed to a line. "Read this yourself. It says here very clearly, Principal cardholder, Audrey Miller. The right to use the authorized user cards depends exclusively on the principal cardholder. In other words, If I want to cancel them, I cancel them. Who I give them to is my business. They have nothing to do with you." Zoe lowered her head and started flipping through the papers. Her gaze became increasingly bewildered, but her mouth kept insisting. "These are old papers. My brother told me he changed the ownership to his name a long time ago. This contract is fake." I took out my cell phone, opened the bank app, and shoved the screen in her face. "Look closely. I am the cardholder. When did he say he changed the ownership? Have him bring you a bank statement that proves it. If he can do that, I will not only reactivate the cards, but I will also apologize to you. If not, stop making a scene here." Zoe was speechless. Her face went from red to white. A moment later, she softened her tone a little, although her rage was still noticeable. "Fine. Let's assume the cards are yours, but my brother lived with you for 20 years. How can you be so cruel? He's about to start a new life, and you leave him unable to pay even the deposit for his wedding. Aren't you thinking about the embarrassment he'll face?" Remembering my 20 years of humiliation, anger surged inside me. And did he think about the embarrassment when he went with his mistress to book a luxury wedding? Did he think about how cruel he was to me when he diverted our money to spend it lavishly on her? I lived by his side for 20 years, saving every last penny. I barely bought myself a $20 dress, while he didn't bat an eye buying handbags for his mistress. Now that he's run out of money, he remembers me. Too late. Zoe stepped back at my words. With reddened eyes, she suddenly reached out to grab a glass from the table, as if to smash it. I quickly stopped her and pointed to the door. "Don't even think about it. I'll call the police right now. Let them come and decide who is at fault, whether it's me for cancelling my own cards, or you for coming to my house to cause a disturbance, and then all the neighbours in this community will come out to see the spectacle of your family harassing people." Zoe's hand remained suspended in the air. She looked at me, then looked toward the door, and finally stomped her foot, grabbed her handbag from the sofa, and said through clenched teeth, "You'll see. I'll tell Mum. When she finds out, she won't leave you alone." Having said that, she turned and left. The slam of the door made the walls, and even the pictures on the wall, tremble. Looking at the dented doorknob, I gripped the glass in my hand. The water was cold, but my heart was firmer than ever. If Zoe had left, it was certain that my mother-in-law would come next. The difficulties ahead would not be few, but I was no longer afraid. From the moment I cancelled those 15 credit cards, I decided I would no longer endure humiliations. I went to the sofa, picked up the contracts that Zoe had scattered, and put them back in the drawer. I poured a little more food for my old cat. He came out from under the sofa and rubbed against my legs. I bent down to stroke his head and thought, no matter how difficult the coming days are, I have to make it through. For myself. Not 30 minutes after Zoe left, there was another knock on the door. This time it was not furious banging, but a very rhythmic tap, tap, tap. Each knock seemed designed to weigh on my heart. I had just sat down with the cat on my lap. Hearing the sound, I knew immediately it was my mother-in-law. I put the cat on the sofa, got up, and went to the door. Before opening, I heard her voice from outside. "Audrey, dear, open the door. It's me." Zoe told me she came here earlier and caused a scene. "I've come so we can talk things over calmly." She spoke gently, but her usual authoritarian tone hadn't changed. I undid the latch. As soon as the door slightly opened, my mother-in-law pushed it and walked in. She was still wearing the dark green coat I had bought her 2 years ago and a grey scarf on her head. In her hand, a canvas bag that seemed heavy. She walked into the house without even changing her shoes, leaving muddy footprints on the floor I had just cleaned. Seeing the dirty prints bothered me, but I didn't say anything. After all, she was an older person. I decided to listen to what she had to say. My mother-in-law didn't even look at me. She went straight to the center of the living room and put the canvas bag on the coffee table. With a dull thud, several apples rolled onto the floor. She dropped onto the sofa, right in the spot where I always sat, and hitting the armrest, she said, "Audrey, come and sit down. I want to tell you a couple of things. From the heart." I dragged a chair and sat down facing her. I placed my hands on my knees and waited for her to speak. She let out a long, deep sigh, as if she carried all the injustices of the world. "Zoe called me crying. She told me you cancelled all the family's cards. Robert couldn't even pay the deposit at the hotel and had to return home begging people. Tell me, dear, how could you do something so inconsiderate?" I didn't answer, waiting for her to continue. Seeing my silence, she went on. "I know Robert made a mistake. Getting involved with that girl is his fault, I admit it. But all men, when they are young, can make a foolish mistake. Besides, you lived together for 20 years. Some affection must remain, right? How could you cut off his funds like that? He's used those cards for years. If you cancel them suddenly, what kind of image will that give him? He's a businessman." Hearing this, I couldn't help but frown. Mother-in-law, he didn't make a foolish mistake. He committed adultery. And those cards are in my name. I cancel them when I want to. It has nothing to do with the image he wants to project. If he wanted to keep up appearances, he shouldn't have used my card to buy handbags for his mistress or book luxury weddings. And he shouldn't have diverted our money either. What manners you have! My mother-in-law pounded the table hard. The teacups on it rattled. "Adultery, you say? That girl is young and affectionate. And Robert is having fun with her. What are we going to do about it? Besides, in 20 years you haven't been able to give him a son. If Robert has a strong, healthy son with her, it will be a blessing for our family. Is it so hard for you to be a little understanding?" That completely infuriated me. I got up, went to the study, and took out the stack of receipts I had saved from a drawer. The household accounting ledger, the records of the construction materials business, and even the evidence of the transfers Robert had made to his mistress. I threw the receipts in front of her and pointed to one. "That I'm not understanding? Well, look at this. Last winter I had a 104-degree fever. I asked him to buy me some Tylenol, and he said he was busy, that he had plans with some friends. Do you know what happened? That very same day, he transferred $200 to that woman so she could buy new clothes. Is this something I should understand?" My mother-in-law picked up the receipt, looked away, and put it back on the table. She kept trying to justify herself. Surely he had something important with his friends. And $200 is not that much money either. Men need to carry some cash for their social interactions. Not that much. I picked up another receipt. Well, look at this. Last year, for my birthday, I bought myself a sweater for over $100, and he said it was too expensive, that I should return it. But that same day, Robert bought that woman a necklace for almost $1,000. Why didn't that seem expensive to him? And look at this too. I pointed to the business accounting ledger. The initial capital for that store was $30,000 that my parents put up. For years, I'm the one who handled the accounts, received the merchandise, and staffed the location every day. There's nothing I haven't done. And what has Robert done? He's been diverting the money from the store, little by little, into his personal account. Do you know how much he's diverted? More than $100,000. Half of that money is mine. By what right did he do that without saying a word to me? My mother-in-law's face began to turn pale. She tried to grab an apple from the bag, but her hand was shaking so much that it fell to the floor. She cleared her throat a couple of times, trying to regain her authoritative air. Audrey, that money was earned by Robert. He can spend it however he wants, and you are my daughter-in-law. You have to obey me. Come on, reactivate those cards. If things go badly for Robert, I won't be at peace. What if he has a breakdown from the distress? Can you live with that? Live with that? I laughed scornfully. Mother-in-law, don't you give your entire $600 monthly pension to Robert and Zoe? Zoe doesn't have a job and lives off of you. Her son's expenses, his private lessons, you pay for everything, right? You save every last penny and wear the same clothes for years, while Robert uses my money to support his mistress. Why is that not disrespectful? Are you asking me to reactivate the cards so he can continue supporting his mistress with my money? Or so Zoe can keep going shopping with my card? My mother-in-law was left without a response, her face flushed. Suddenly, she threw herself onto the floor and began to beat her knees while crying loudly. Oh, how miserable I am! What a life I have! After raising my children alone for decades, with so much effort, the daughter-in-law I get not only doesn't respect me, but also ruins my son's life. I can't take it anymore. Neighbours, come and see this. This old woman is being mistreated by her daughter-in-law. The more she cried, the calmer I felt. I went to the door, opened it a little, and told her, Mother-in-law, if you want the neighbours to see it, I'll open the door wide. Let everyone come in and decide who is right. Let's see if the problem is that I cancelled my own cards, or that Robert committed adultery and diverted our shared assets. Let's see if the disrespectful one is me, or if it's you, who only defends your son while mistreating your daughter-in-law. If you don't want to be embarrassed, let's talk clearly. My mother-in-law's crying stopped abruptly. She lifted her head, looked through the crack in the door, and then outside. The panic was evident in her gaze. In this community, we were all lifelong neighbours. If something happened in one house, the whole neighbourhood found out. If she made a scene, the ones who would be exposed would not be me, but her and Robert. Slowly, she stood up. She dusted off her clothes and gave me a murderous look. You've really gone too far, Audrey Miller. You've gotten too full of yourself, haven't you? Daring to talk to me like that, you'll see. Robert won't forgive you. Having said this, she picked up the canvas bag from the table and went out the door. As she passed me, she pushed me hard. I didn't step aside, I just looked at her. Upon reaching the door, she rushed out without changing her shoes and slammed it even harder than her daughter had. I closed the door and looked at the apples rolling on the floor and the receipts scattered on the table. I sighed deeply. The truth is, while I was facing her, my heart was also trembling a little. After all, she was an older person. But thinking about my 20 years of humiliation, I couldn't bear it anymore. I picked up the apples from the floor and put them in a fruit bowl in the kitchen. I organized the receipts and put them back in the drawer. My old cat came over and rubbed against my legs. I sat down and stroked his head, while whispering to him, "Don't be afraid. I'm here now." I knew that after my mother-in-law, Robert would come. The difficulties awaiting me were many, but I was ready. No matter what tricks they tried, I wouldn't be the same as before, the one who endured everything submissively. I was going to recover what was mine and make them pay for what they had done. In the afternoon, I called Leslie and told her about my mother-in-law's visit. Leslie let out a couple of swear words over the phone and then told me, "Audrey, don't worry. If they come back to cause trouble, call me, I'll fly over there." Oh, and I already talked to the lawyer I told you about, a cousin of mine. Does tomorrow work for you? We can go together, show him those receipts, and see what can be done to get back the money they took from you. Leslie's words comforted me. With her help and a lawyer, I wouldn't have to fight alone anymore. I told her tomorrow worked, that we would meet in the morning to go to his office. After hanging up, I went out onto the balcony and looked at the sunlight. I felt much lighter. No matter how difficult the path, I would move forward. I was finally going to live for myself. I collected all the apples my mother-in-law had tossed. Some were bruised, but others, after being washed, were edible. I put them on a plate in the kitchen to dry. While I was cleaning the table, my old cat walked around my feet, occasionally rubbing his head against my pants. He seemed to know something had happened and was calmer than usual. Just then, my cell phone rang. The screen on the living room table lit up. It was Robert's number. My fingers paused for an instant. I knew the moment had arrived. Neither his mother nor his sister had achieved anything, so it was obvious it was his turn now. I put down the cloth, walked over, and picked up the phone, but I didn't answer immediately. First, I pressed the record button. Since Zoe's scene, I had decided I should record everything they said as evidence, so they couldn't deny it later. Once ready, I slid my finger to accept the call and put the phone to my ear. "Audrey, have you gone crazy?" Robert's voice exploded on the other end of the line. It sounded hoarse and rough, as if he had just argued with someone. In the background, I heard car horns. It seemed he was on the street. "Tell me one thing. Were you the one who cancelled all 15 cards?" I leaned back on the sofa, gently stroking my cat's back, and answered with a voice devoid of emotion. "Yes, it was me." "Is there a problem?" "Is there a problem? Of course there's a problem." He screamed so loudly it hurt my ear. "Today at the hotel, in front of everyone, I swiped 7 or 8 cards, and none of them worked. The look the manager gave me, like I was a beggar. And Holly there, pressuring me. Do you have any idea how embarrassed I was? You did this on purpose, didn't you? You can't stand to see me happy." I laughed. My cat was startled by the scream and shrank back. I stroked him to calm him down. "Yes, I did it on purpose." "And you? Did you think about my happiness when you went with your mistress to book a luxury wedding? When you used my card to buy her a $3,000 handbag and a $1,000 necklace? Did you think that I was still wearing a 3-year-old coat? When you diverted more than $100,000 from the business to your personal account, did you think that half of that money was mine?" "Stop with the nonsense," he interrupted me. His voice was full of panic and rage. "I've used those cards for years. They're as good as mine. If you wanted to cancel them, you could have at least told me. Do I not exist to you? Don't you have even a little affection left?" "Affection?" I repeated. I felt nothing. It just seemed ridiculous. "When I caught you hugging your mistress at the store, did you think about affection? When I had a 104-degree fever and asked you to buy me some Tylenol and you told me you were busy drinking with your friends while you were taking her out to a restaurant, did you think about affection? It's a little late to talk about that now." He was speechless, so his voice grew harder, more threatening. "Listen to me closely, Audrey. Reactivate those cards right now. If not, face the consequences. I know you still have those receipts. Do you think those pieces of paper will do you any good? We're already divorced. The division of assets is done. Don't you dare think you're going to squeeze one more cent out of me." I held the phone, listening to him yell. The small red dot of the recorder blinked, registering every one of his insults. I spoke calmly. "Whether the division of assets is done or not is not up to you. I've already hired a lawyer. I'm meeting with him tomorrow. We'll see then. We'll see if the $100,000 you diverted and the money you spent on your mistress with my card are considered marital assets. And don't even dream about me reactivating the cards. They're mine, and I give them to whoever I want. Who do you think you are? A lawyer? You dared to hire a lawyer? His voice betrayed his panic, although he tried to maintain his composure. Audrey, don't go too far. My mother told me. If you don't reactivate the cards, we'll come to your house every day to make a scene. We'll make sure the whole community of neighbours finds out what kind of harpy you are. A woman who, even after the divorce, tries to fleece her ex-husband. Let's see if you can walk down the street with your head held high afterward. Come whenever you want, I said. My voice had become icy. The last time your sister came to make trouble, I didn't call the police out of respect for you. Next time, I'll call 911 directly. And then we'll see who is at fault. Whether it's me for cancelling my cards, or you for coming as a gang to my house to cause a disturbance. And then not only the neighbours, but also the police will know the true face of your family. Let's see who is more embarrassed. There was a silence of several seconds on the other end of the line. Then a dull thud was heard, as if he had smashed the phone against something. His furious insults followed. Audrey, damn you, I was blind. How could I marry someone like you? You'll see. This isn't going to end here. I won't let you live in peace. Listening to his threats, I felt no fear. On the contrary, I felt calm. The angrier he got, the more evident it was that he had no arguments. I checked that the recording was over 3 minutes. I had all the evidence I needed. I hung up the call firmly. I saved the audio file. I renamed it as Robert's Threats and uploaded it to the cloud. Although I had hung up, the echo of his snarls seemed to persist in the phone. I left it on the table. I got up and went to the kitchen for a glass of lukewarm water. After drinking a few sips, the unpleasant feeling dissipated. My old cat jumped onto the sofa and curled up in the spot where I had been sitting, gently wagging his tail. I went to the balcony and opened the curtains. The sky had already darkened. In the courtyard, some neighbours were walking and chatting animatedly. Leaning on the railing, I thought about Robert's threats, and suddenly it seemed comical. Before, I had always been afraid of him getting angry. I was afraid of arguing with him and conceded everything. The result? Betrayal and manipulation. Now that I wasn't afraid, he couldn't do anything to me. Just then, I received a WhatsApp message from Leslie. Does tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the lawyer's office work for you? Yes, perfect, I replied. I told her that Robert had just called to threaten me and sent her the audio file. Leslie replied instantly. Well done. You have to record everything. With this recording, he won't dare to threaten you lightly. And the lawyer will have a stronger basis to act. Don't worry. Tomorrow, when we meet with him, you'll see how we get back the money that bastard stole from you. Leslie's message comforted me. With her by my side and a lawyer to help me, I wouldn't have to fight alone anymore. I'm not afraid, I wrote. I have you. I closed WhatsApp and returned to the living room. I organized the receipts on the table and put them in the briefcase I would take tomorrow. Then, I started preparing dinner. There were some vegetables and eggs left in the refrigerator that I had bought the day before. I made a couple of simple dishes and some mashed potatoes. As I ate, my cat sat quietly beside me. I gave him a piece of egg, and he ate it with gusto. Looking at him, I thought, even if it's just the two of us from now on, we have to live well. I won't let those horrible people and their problems affect me anymore. I knew Robert wouldn't give up easily, and that he would try to cause me more problems. He might come looking for me again, or bring his mother and sister to cause a scene. But I was ready. No matter what tricks they used, I would confront them and fight back. I had to recover what was mine and make them pay for their actions. And most importantly, finally live for myself and live 100 times better than before. I made a backup copy of the audio file of the call with Robert and reorganized the stack of receipts in the briefcase. The documents I was going to present to the lawyer tomorrow had to be perfectly ordered. I couldn't afford any mistakes. Inside the briefcase was also the lawyer's business card that Leslie had given me. I looked at the clock. It was just past 7 o'clock in the evening. It was already dark outside, and the comforting aroma of warm mashed potatoes drifted from the kitchen. My old cat, sitting next to the table, stared intently at my chopsticks, waiting for another piece of egg. Just as I was sitting down to dinner, my cell phone made a sound. It was a friend request notification on WhatsApp. I picked up the phone and saw a new message in the requests list. The username was Holly. The profile picture, a selfie with heavy makeup and a shiny necklace. There was no doubt it was his mistress. The request message was arrogant and provocative. "I'm Robert's fiancé. I have something to tell you, so accept me." Reading it, I couldn't help but smile scornfully. My cat rubbed against my hand. I stroked his head and accepted the request. Let's see what gems she had to spout. As soon as I accepted her, her messages rained down like projectiles. First, 3 or 4 photos. The first was a view of a hotel's banquet hall. Luxurious chandeliers shone, and although their names were not yet on the sign in the background, it read, "Congratulations to the couple." The second photo was a selfie of her in a white wedding dress. The train of the dress was very long, and in her hand, a diamond ring, while she flashed the peace sign at the camera. The third was a photo with Robert. He was hugging her waist, and both posed in front of the wedding menu. Just reading the names of the dishes, it was clear they were very expensive. Then came a torrent of text messages, every line dripping with arrogance. "This is where Robert and I are going to celebrate our engagement. Robert said he's spending $100,000 to make my wedding an over-the-top affair. Look at this. My wedding dress is custom-made. It costs over $20,000, and this ring, $15,000. Robert says it looks beautiful on me. I'm sure in the 20 years you were with Robert, you never set foot in such a luxurious place, right?" I took a spoonful of mashed potatoes and slowly typed my reply. My tone was extremely calm. What a beautiful location. The dress and the ring also look very expensive, but I have a doubt. Are you paying for that money, or is Robert paying for it? If he's paying, if I were you, I'd be careful. Yesterday he called me desperate because he couldn't even pay the deposit for the reservation. He swiped 7 or 8 cards, and none of them worked. Are you sure you have $100,000? Not 10 seconds passed before she replied. Every word showed urgency. Don't talk nonsense. Robert has a lot of money. His business is going great. It's impossible that he's broke. What's happening is that you're jealous, and you can't stand to see us happy. Me jealous of you, I thought. It seemed more ridiculous every time. I lived with Robert for 20 years. I know what kind of person he is, much better than you. His business is just okay. Last year, he even diverted more than $100,000 to his personal account. Who do you think that money was for? And the money he bought the dress and the ring with was surely paid for with my primary card. Oh, by the way, I cancelled that card. He won't be able to use it anymore. This time, her reply took longer to arrive. A minute passed before she wrote a sentence. Liar. Robert told me those cards were his. That you cancelled them because you're hysterical. He also told me the division of assets was already done. So don't you dare think about taking any more money from him. Division of assets done, I thought. I put down the phone and sent her a screenshot of the transfer history I had saved. Look at this. On the 15th of May last year, He transferred $3,000 to your account. Memo. For your expenses. On the 28th of June, $2,000. Memo. For the handbag. All that money was our marital property. He sent it to you without consulting me. Do you call that a finished division of assets? And if he really had so much money, why was he paying for things for you with cards that didn't even work? This time it took 2 minutes for her to respond. Her tone was no longer so defiant. It sounded more like a tantrum. Robert gave me that because he wanted to. We truly love each other, and you're just an outsider. You're already divorced. Why are you clinging to the past? Do you want to get back together with him? I'm warning you, not in your dreams. Get back together with him? I almost laughed out loud. You have quite the ego. I just wanted you to know. Don't get too carried away celebrating a wedding and buying luxuries with other people's money. If you're not careful, you'll end up without money, without a wedding, and in the end, without anything. And if you really loved him, you wouldn't have asked him to beg me for the credit cards or let him divert our shared assets. If you really want to build a life together, you don't act with so much calculation. I must have hit a nerve. She started insulting me with all kinds of names. Bitter old woman. Harpy. I didn't play her game. I simply took screenshots of the entire conversation. I saved them in my evidence folder and sent a copy to Leslie. Right after taking the last screenshot, a notification appeared. This contact has removed you from their list. Seeing the notification, I put the phone on the table, picked up my silverware, and took another spoonful of mashed potatoes. It was still warm and comforted me inside. Finally, I gave my cat a little piece of egg, which he ate with gusto. Shortly after, I received a WhatsApp message from Leslie. She sent an emoji with smoke coming out of its ears, along with a message. What a brazen woman. She dares to provoke you. She doesn't know who she's messing with. She really believes Robert is rich. You'll see, in no time she'll be crying in the corners. Probably, I replied. Talking to her is a waste of time, but I saved the whole conversation. We'll show it to the lawyer tomorrow. Maybe it will serve as evidence. Of course it will. Save everything, Leslie added. Tomorrow I'll go to the office a little earlier to wait for you. We'll talk properly with the lawyer to solve the issue of the money Robert stole from you. We have to recover every last cent. After talking to Leslie, I washed the dishes and reviewed the briefcase again. Receipts, screenshots of the transfers, the audio file from Robert, the screenshots of the conversation with his mistress. Nothing was missing. Then I sat on the sofa, turned on the television, and watched a bit of a classic movie. I used to watch it often with my mother-in-law, but since the problems with Robert started, I stopped watching it. Now, watching it alone, it seemed quite entertaining. Looking at the television, I felt strangely at peace. Before, I always lived in fear of displeasing my husband or annoying my mother-in-law, and I endured everything. The result was suffering and also being betrayed. Now it was different. Whether it was a threat from Robert or a provocation from his mistress, I could confront them and even fight back. I knew the road ahead still had thorns. For example, Robert might try to pressure me in other ways, or my mother-in-law and ex-sister-in-law might come back to cause a scene. But I was no longer afraid. I had evidence in my hands, a friend, and a lawyer by my side. And above all, I finally had the courage to fight for myself. As the saying goes, it's better to lose the money than the dignity. I was not only going to recover my dignity, but also everything that belonged to me, and live well the years I had left. And as for those horrible people and their problems, let them torment each other. In the end, the only ones who would lose would be themselves. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I woke up. I couldn't go back to sleep, so I got up and reviewed the briefcase again. Last night, after the conversation with the mistress, I printed the screenshots and organized them along with the receipts and the audio file. I was worried about forgetting something important. My old cat walked around the living room, occasionally rubbing his head against my hand, as if giving me encouragement. At 7, I finished getting ready and left the house. I had arranged to meet Leslie on the corner of the street. She was already there, in her usual red jacket, holding 2 warm croissants. As soon as she saw me, she gave me one. "Here, eat. I just bought them at the bakery next door. You'll have a lot to talk about with the lawyer later. You won't have the strength on an empty stomach." I took a bite of the croissant. The intense and sweet flavor of the chocolate comforted my soul. "You're the best. With all the paperwork, I forgot to eat breakfast." "Always so forgetful," Leslie said as we walked. "To deal with those lowlifes, the first thing is to take care of yourself. The lawyer I found for you is completely trustworthy. He specializes in post-divorce asset disputes. Last year he handled my neighbor's case and managed to get her back all the money that had been taken from her." While we were talking, we arrived at the lawyer's office. It wasn't very big, but it was impeccable. On the wall hung several thank you plaques with phrases like "Defender of Justice" and "Service and Honesty." The lawyer was already waiting for us in his office. He looked about 40 years old. He wore glasses and conveyed a great sense of calm. Seeing us enter, he quickly stood up and invited us to sit down. "Please, come in. Sit down. Would you like a glass of water? Take your time." I handed him the briefcase. I was a little nervous and clasped my hands. "Mr. Attorney, please take a look at this. It's all the documentation I've gathered. The receipts for household expenses, the business accounting ledgers, and the evidence of the transfers he made to his mistress." The lawyer took the briefcase, took out the documents, and examined them one by one, carefully. Occasionally, he underlined something with a pen. In the office, the only sound was the rustling of the pages. Leslie and I waited in silence for him to speak. After about 30 minutes, he put down the papers, adjusted his glasses, and looked at me. "You have prepared the documentation very thoroughly, especially the business accounting ledgers. Every income and expense is recorded, which makes them key evidence. You mentioned that he diverted $100,000. According to these records, between May and October of last year, he made 5 transfers to his personal account, each for $20,000, totaling $100,000. Furthermore, these transfers were made before your divorce, so they are considered marital assets. Having made them without your consent is a clearly illegal act." My heart raced. "So will I be able to recover that money?" I asked. "I've heard that some people, even if they prove the diversion, don't recover anything in the end." "You will be able to recover it, don't worry," the lawyer assured firmly. "The accounting ledgers are impeccable, and we have the evidence of the transfers to his personal account. The chain of evidence is solid. In addition to those $100,000, I see several smaller transfers at the beginning of last year, between $1,000 and $2,000 each, totaling more than $10,000. We must also include those in the calculation. Of course, the items he bought for his mistress with the authorized user card. Do you have the card statements? If we can prove that those expenses were for her, they are also considered marital assets, and you can demand the return of a portion." Hearing this, I felt a weight finally lift off my shoulders. The tension I felt dissipated. Leslie, next to me, also sighed in relief and patted my hand. "See? I told you he was trustworthy. Now you can relax." The lawyer continued. "The next step is to obtain all the information about his personal account, the account number, the bank, and also the details of the account to which he transferred money to his mistress. I can request a court order for the bank to provide us with that information directly. Also, think about whether you have other assets in common. For example, the house, the car, or if he has other deposits or investments. We must clarify everything and leave nothing out. After thinking for a moment, I replied, "We bought the house after we got married, and it is in both our names. He bought the car 2 years ago, but it's in his name." As for other savings, when I asked him, he told me that all the money was used for the business, that he didn't have anything saved. Now I see that he surely has it hidden. The house and the car are marital assets, so in the divorce, they must be divided 50%. It won't be easy for them to keep everything, the lawyer said. As for other savings, I can trace the flow of funds through his account movements. With the statements, it is possible to follow the trail. Don't worry about his tricks. The law is on our side, and he won't be able to get away with it. I took out my cell phone and showed the lawyer the screenshot of Robert's personal account that I had saved. This is his personal account. I saw it by chance on his phone and wrote it down. I found his mistress's account number in his conversations. Will that help? The lawyer took the phone, looked at it, and nodded. With this information, the process will be much simpler. Today, I will file the request with the court to obtain the investigation order as soon as possible. As soon as we have the results, we can file the lawsuit and demand the return of the diverted assets. When we finished the consultation with the lawyer, it was almost noon. We thanked him and left the office. On the street, the sun shone warmly, and my heart felt much lighter. Before, I had always felt alone and defenseless against my ex-husband's schemes. Now I realized that if I didn't give up, with the help of my friends and the protection of the law, there was nothing I couldn't overcome. Leslie took me to a small nearby restaurant and ordered 2 of my favorite dishes. As we ate, she told me, "Audrey, when all this is resolved, don't stay locked up at home. I've found you a job. A friend of mine has an organic product store in the neighborhood and is looking for a manager. The salary is good, and since you already managed your ex's business, I'm sure you'll do great." My heart skipped a beat. I had already thought that after the divorce, I should find a job to be independent and not have to depend on anyone. Leslie's proposal fit perfectly with my plans. That would be great, but I'm a little afraid of not doing it well. "How could you not know how?" Leslie laughed. "You're meticulous, and you're good with numbers. Managing an organic product store won't be a problem. When the asset issue is resolved, I'll take you to meet my friend and see the place." After eating, I said goodbye to Leslie and walked home slowly. The neighbors I ran into on the street greeted me, and I responded with a smile. Before, I was terrified of them asking about my problems with Robert. I felt ashamed. Not anymore. I hadn't done anything wrong. The ones who had acted wrongly were him and those who had deceived me. I didn't have to feel ashamed. When I arrived home, my old cat, hearing the door, ran to rub against my legs. I left the list of documents the lawyer had given me on the table. On it, all the papers I needed to prepare were detailed. Seeing it, I felt full of confidence. No matter how many difficulties were ahead, I had the courage to face them. I knew I wasn't alone. I had friends, the law, and my own determination. I sent a thank you message to the lawyer. Then I started cleaning the house. I put Robert's old things in a box, waiting for him to come and pick them up. From now on, this house was only mine. I wouldn't allow anything related to him to occupy an inch of my space. I wanted to start a new life, finally live for myself, and live in a much brighter way than before. I was crouched on the floor, sorting Robert's old things. I folded several of his worn shirts and put them in a cardboard box. The smell of the detergent he used to use still permeated the clothes and made my stomach churn. My old cat, sitting next to the box, occasionally scratched a corner, as if he were helping me. Suddenly I heard banging on the door, much more violent than the previous time. The door trembled, and even the frame of a picture on the wall vibrated. Next, the shrill voice of Zoe and the wails of my mother-in-law mingled. "Audrey Miller, open the door. Because of you, my brother is between a rock and a hard place. We're not leaving here just like that today." My heart sank. I knew it was them again. I put down the shirt I had in my hand. I got up and went to the door, but I didn't open it immediately. "What's going on?" I asked through the door. "If you have something to say it from outside. You are not welcome in my house." "Open up. You dare not open?" Zoe kicked the door hard. "I'm warning you, today my mother and I came so you would reactivate the cards and forget about the asset issue. If not, we won't leave here. We'll make the whole neighborhood see how you mistreat an elderly woman and harass your ex-husband." I frowned. They were incredibly childish. I took my cell phone out of my pocket, activated the recording mode, and only then unlocked the door. This time, I was going to record their scene so they couldn't deny it. As soon as the door opened, Zoe pushed my mother-in-law to enter. She had a canvas bag in her hand. As soon as she entered, she threw it onto the floor. The dishes inside shattered, and the ceramic pieces flew in all directions. My frightened cat jumped onto the top of a cabinet and stayed curled up, not daring to come down. "Look what you've done," Zoe shouted, pointing at me. "My brother can't even pay the wedding deposit, and his fiancée won't stop arguing with him. The business is abandoned. Are you happy now? You're a harpy. You can't stand to see others happy." I looked at the ceramic pieces scattered on the floor and contained my rage. What have I done? Is it wrong to cancel my own credit cards and claim what is mine? Your brother is the one who committed adultery and diverted the assets. What does that have to do with me? If you want to talk reasonably, fine. If you come to cause a scene, I'm calling the police right now. "Call the police? Who do you think you're threatening?" Zoe said, and headed to the living room to grab the briefcase that was on the table. Inside were the documents I had organized with the lawyer. I rushed to stop her and hugged the briefcase tightly. "Don't touch my things. They're evidence. If you dare to touch them, you'll regret it." "Evidence? What evidence?" "It looks like you forged them." Zoe tried to snatch it from me. In the struggle, her nails scratched my arm, leaving a red mark. The pain made me let go of the briefcase, which fell to the floor, scattering all the receipts. At that moment, my mother-in-law threw herself onto the floor, stretched out her legs, and began to beat her knees, crying even louder than the previous time. Oh, how miserable I am. My son married a beast who, even after the divorce, won't leave us alone. She breaks our things and wants to steal our assets. Neighbors, come and see this. This old woman is going to be beaten to death. Hearing the screams, the next-door neighbor slightly opened the door and peeked out. Seeing the ceramic pieces and papers on the floor, she frowned and closed the door again. Seeing that someone was looking, Zoe cried even louder, deliberately rolling on the floor. "Come and see this. Audrey Miller is mistreating people. Even after the divorce, she's obsessed with money and hits people." Seeing the spectacle of mother and daughter, I no longer felt intimidated. It seemed ridiculous. In front of them, I took out my cell phone, dialed 911, and said in a clear voice, "Hello, police. There are people in my house causing a disturbance and breaking my things. Can you come, please?" Hearing me call the police, Zoe's crying stopped abruptly. She jumped up and pointed at me, shouting, Did you really call the police? Audrey, you're crazy. After all, we were family. Do you have to go to these extremes? Family? I laughed. When your brother committed adultery, did you consider me family? When you came to my house to break my things and insult me, did you consider me family? Now you're afraid? Too late. My mother-in-law also got up and dusted herself off. Panic was evident in her gaze. Audrey, don't call the police. We can talk things over calmly. It's just that we were very worried and we acted without thinking. It's too late to talk calmly, I said, hanging up the phone and looking at them. The police are already on their way. Let's talk in front of them. Let's see if I mistreated you or you mistreated me. Shortly after, the siren of a police car was heard approaching. My mother-in-law's and Zoe's faces turned pale. Zoe quickly gathered the ceramic pieces from the floor and, in her nervousness, cut her hand. My mother-in-law beside her kept moving nervously, without a trace of her former arrogance. The police didn't take long to arrive. They were 2 officers. Upon entering and seeing the ceramic pieces and papers on the floor, the one in front frowned and asked me, "Are you the one who called?" What happened? I pointed to my mother-in-law and Zoe. "Officer, these are my ex-mother-in-law and my ex-sister-in-law. Today they came to my house to cause a disturbance. They broke a dish and tried to take my documents. Look, this woman scratched my arm." The officer saw the scratch on my arm and the ceramic pieces and then turned to them. "Why are you causing this disturbance here?" Zoe stammered, not knowing what to say. My mother-in-law stepped forward, trying to adopt an air of authority. "Officer, this is a family matter. It was a misunderstanding. You don't have to worry. We were already leaving. Even if it's a family matter, you cannot enter someone's house to cause a disturbance or damage property," the officer said severely. "According to the law, harassing others or deliberately damaging someone else's property is a crime. Since it's the first time and the damages are not severe, we won't detain you. But you must apologize to this lady and compensate her for the damages. If it happens again, we will act with more force." My mother-in-law's and Zoe's faces turned livid, but they didn't dare to reply. At the police's insistence, Zoe reluctantly apologized to me. My mother-in-law also added "it was our fault." Afterward, the police made them clean up all the ceramic pieces before letting them go. Mother and daughter left my house in silence, with their heads down, not even daring to close the door. Watching them leave, I sighed in relief and closed the door. Before leaving, the officer told me, "If anyone bothers you again, don't argue with them. Call us directly, we'll take care of it. You can also request a restraining order to prevent harassment." I thanked the officers and walked them to the door. Returning home and seeing the clean floor and the briefcase in my hands, I felt a strange peace. My cat came down from the cabinet and rubbed against my legs, as if to console me. I sent a message to Leslie telling her what had happened. She replied instantly with a thumbs-up emoji. "Well done. That's how you knock them down a peg. Let's see if they dare to come back. Are you okay? Does your hand hurt?" "I'm fine," I replied. "Just a scratch." "It's nothing. The police gave them a warning." "I don't think they'll come back." After talking to Leslie, I reordered the receipts that had fallen and put them in the briefcase. Then I took out the box with Robert's old things and left it outside the door, waiting for him to come for it. Looking at the sunlight through the window, I thought, from now on, no matter what happens, I'm not going to put up with it. I have to defend my rights. I won't let those horrible people and their problems affect my life anymore. I was crouched on the floor, picking up the last ceramic pieces. A sharp fragment made a small cut on my finger, and it started to bleed. My old cat, who had come down from the cabinet, walked around me occasionally rubbing his head against my hand, as if commiserating with me. Just as I was putting the last pieces into the trash bag, there was another knock on the door. This time, it was a gentle tap, tap, tap. I knew instantly it was Leslie. I quickly got up and opened the door, without having cleaned the blood from my hand yet. As soon as Leslie came in and saw the wound, she frowned. "My goodness, what is this?" "Did those two do this to you?" she said. While taking a band-aid from her purse, she took my hand and carefully put it on. Her movements were gentle and quick. "No, relax. I accidentally cut myself picking up the ceramic pieces." "It doesn't hurt," I said, smiling. Leslie looked at me reproachfully and left a plastic bag with a container on the table. "What do you mean it doesn't hurt? It's bleeding." "Look, on my way to the store, I brought you some hot chicken noodle soup and some apples, which I know you like. Drink it while it's hot." She opened the container, and the aroma of chicken noodle soup filled the room. Inside there was corn and carrots, my favorites. I felt a warmth in my chest. I took the spoon and tried a sip. The hot soup went down my throat, and I felt that every last bit of bitterness I carried inside dissolved. Leslie sat next to me, and seeing the trash bag on the floor and the box with Robert's things next to the door, she sighed. "Those two are unbelievable, daring to come to your house to break things. Thank goodness you called the police. Otherwise they would have gotten away with it." "Yes." As soon as the police arrived, they calmed down. "They even reluctantly apologized to me," I said, putting down the spoon and telling her what had happened. "With the police warning, I don't think they'll dare to come back." Leslie nodded and took a sheet of paper from her purse. "Oh, about the organic products store I told you about. I talked to my friend. This is the job offer ad. Take a look at it. They're looking for a manager to handle stock control, accounting, and personnel management. The base salary is $2,000, but with commissions you can earn between $3,500 and $5,000 a month. The conditions are good. 1 day off on the weekend and extra pay at Christmas and summer." I took the ad and read it carefully. I felt excited, but also a little insecure. I've never done a job like this. I manage the construction materials business, but an organic product store will be very different. I'm afraid of not doing it well. "What's going to be different?" Leslie said, patting my hand. "Controlling stock, handling accounts, managing the store. It's the same. When you ran your ex's business, you did everything. Accounting, receiving merchandise, attending to customers. What didn't you know how to do? An organic product store is much simpler. You just have to pay a little more attention to the preservation of vegetables and fruit. My friend told me that she herself will train you for a few days. How to choose the product, how to preserve it. You'll learn right away." Leslie's words dispelled much of my doubts. "My friend says that if you agree, you could stop by the store tomorrow to talk to her. If you like it, you can start next Monday. You don't have to decide now, just go and see what you think." "That would be great," I said, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. Before, I was worried about being jobless and without income after the divorce. Now, with this opportunity, I was no longer afraid. Leslie took another stack of documents from her purse. "And the papers you organized with the lawyer. I made several copies for you, one for him, one for you, and the rest as backups, so you don't have to look for them if you need them. I also spoke with the lawyer. The request for the investigation order has already been filed. It will take about 3 or 4 days to be issued. As soon as it is, he'll call you." I took the documents. They were perfectly organized, with labels indicating receipts, transfers, audio backup. Seeing them, I was deeply moved. "Leslie, really, thank you. Without you, I wouldn't know what to do. Don't be silly, she said, smiling. We've been friends for 20 years. How could I not help you? When I was having a hard time, you were there for me. Now it's my turn. And your ex and his family of scoundrels have to pay. We can't let ourselves be stepped on. Then Leslie picked up my cell phone and opened the voice recorder. Oh, the audios from Robert and Zoe. I made a cloud backup of them and put a password on them so no one else can listen. Don't worry. If they come back to cause trouble, keep recording. They are evidence the lawyer can use. I nodded. I felt much calmer. With Leslie helping me, a trusted lawyer, and a job in sight, I was no longer the submissive housewife I used to be. In the afternoon, Leslie accompanied me to the organic products store. The place was not big, but it was impeccable. The vegetables and fruits were organized with the entry date clearly visible. The owner, a woman in her 40s, was very friendly. You are Leslie's friend, right? She said, smiling. Leslie told me you are very meticulous and you are good with accounts and management. I just need someone trustworthy. If you agree, we can work together. I talked to the owner. She explained the daily operation of the store. In the morning, you have to go select the fresh vegetables and fruits. At noon, restock the merchandise. And at night, do inventory and manage the accounts. They were similar tasks to what I did in the materials business, so I felt capable of doing it. I accept the job, I told her. I will start next Monday. The owner was very happy and took my hand. That's great. With your help, everything will be much easier. Leaving the store, Leslie took my hand and smiled. See, I told you you could do it. Now everything will be fine. You have a job. The evidence is being gathered. From now on, things can only get better. Looking at people walking down the street, under the warm sunlight, my heart filled with hope. Before, I thought divorce was the end of the world. Now I realized that if I didn't give up and had friends by my side, there was no difficulty I couldn't overcome. Returning home, I left the job ad and the documents on the table. My cat jumped onto it and sat next to the papers, as if protecting them. I stroked his head and thought, I start working on Monday. I have to work hard and live well. Finally live for myself. I won't let those horrible people and their problems affect me anymore. In the evening, I sent a message to the lawyer to tell him that Leslie had helped me organize the papers and to confirm the investigation order again. Don't worry, he replied. As soon as the order is issued, I will call you. We will go to the bank together, check the account information, and recover your assets. The lawyer's message gave me even more security. Now I had a job, friends, and the protection of the law. I no longer had to fear Robert and his family. I knew the road could still be difficult, but I was ready. No matter what happened, I would face it bravely and move forward. On Sunday morning, I was returning home after being at the organic products store to learn. The owner had been very kind. She spent the whole morning teaching me how to choose the freshest vegetables. She explained that I had to look at the hydration of the leaves and the firmness of the stems. She also taught me how to preserve fruit. By covering it with a damp cloth and changing the water twice a day, it could stay fresh for 2 or 3 more days. Loaded with a bag full of vegetables and apples that she had given me, I felt incredibly at peace. Thinking about starting work officially on Monday filled me with hope. I finally saw a light at the end of the tunnel. Just as I was arriving at the entrance of my building, the phone rang. It was Robert's number. I frowned and, after hesitating for a moment, I answered. After all, the asset issue was still unresolved, so his call had to be related to that. Audrey, it's me. The voice on the other end was completely different from usual. There was no arrogance or threats. On the contrary, It sounded soft and conciliatory. Do you have a moment? I wanted to talk to you about the division of assets and the misunderstandings we've had. Let's see if we can talk things through properly, without always being on the defensive. My heart skipped a beat. Instinctively, I knew he wasn't up to any good. Him, who always insulted and threatened me, was now talking to me with such sweetness. There had to be something behind it. I didn't accept immediately. If you have something to say it over the phone. I don't have time to meet. It's difficult to talk properly over the phone. Let's meet in person, he insisted. I know I've done things wrong. I shouldn't have argued with you or let my mother and sister go to your house to cause a scene. I found a quiet coffee shop near where you live. Only half an hour we talk. And I leave. I won't bother you anymore. I thought about it for a moment. Over the phone, he would surely try to manipulate the conversation. Maybe it wasn't a bad idea to meet. We could clear things up and see what he was planning. But I wasn't naive enough to go alone. All right, we can meet. But I won't go alone. I'll go with someone. If that's okay, we'll meet at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at the coffee shop on the corner. Otherwise, forget it. He hesitated for a few seconds. Fearing that I would refuse, he rushed to say, "It's fine. Come with whoever you want. The important thing is that we talk." I hung up and immediately called the lawyer to tell him that Robert wanted to meet. "He's surely trying to convince you to give up your share of the assets," the lawyer said instantly. "For example, to give up the $100,000 or to hand over the house to him. Don't go alone. I'll go with you. Let's also bring the evidence we organized. If he tries any tricks, we'll expose him right then and there." At 12 minutes before 2 o'clock, I met the lawyer at the entrance of the coffee shop. He was carrying a briefcase with all the evidence. "Don't be nervous," he told me, patting my shoulder. "With me here, he won't dare to do anything. When we arrive, let him talk. Don't interrupt him. When he brings up the asset issue, I will present the evidence. Let's take it step by step." Upon entering the coffee shop, I saw Robert sitting by the window. He was wearing a black jacket and his hair was neatly combed. In front of him, a cup of latte, the kind I used to drink. He, who before wouldn't even buy it for me because he said it was expensive, was now pretending to be generous. We sat across from him. Seeing the lawyer, Robert's face tensed for a moment, but he quickly forced a smile. "This is my lawyer," I said, without beating around the bush. "To facilitate the recording of the conversation, we will discuss the asset issue with him present." Robert's smile froze. To hide his nervousness, he took a sip of coffee. "That's fine with me. With a lawyer present, things will be clearer. Audrey, after all, we were married for 20 years. Even though we're divorced, we don't have to be enemies. What my mother and sister did was their fault. I've already scolded them. They won't bother you again." I didn't say anything, waiting for him to get to the point. And indeed, after a pause, he continued. "Regarding the asset issue, I know you're still angry. You probably think I stole $100,000 from you. The truth is, it wasn't on purpose. At that moment, the business urgently needed liquidity, and I temporarily transferred it to my personal account. I intended to return it as soon as things calmed down, but I forgot. Now the business isn't doing well. Holly keeps arguing with me. I'm having a hard time too. Couldn't we just pretend nothing happened? Like I borrowed it from you, and I'll give it back when I have the money." "Borrowed?" I laughed. "Those $100,000 were marital assets. You diverted them without saying a word to me. And now you say it was a loan? And when you used that money to buy handbags and necklaces for your mistress, did you also think it was a loan?" Robert's face flushed slightly. "That was a misunderstanding. What I bought for her was with my personal money, Not with those $100,000. Audrey, let's leave the past behind. I know you're not having a good time either. You don't have a job or income. Let's do this. Give me the house and I'll give you compensation of $150,000. With that money, you can find a good job and start over. Can't we separate peacefully? Hearing this, I let out a laugh. The house, which we bought after we got married, was valued at least $1 million, and he intended to take it from me for $150,000. Besides, he was saying I didn't have a job or income. He was incredibly calculating. Before I could respond, the lawyer spoke first. He took out the business accounting ledgers and placed them in front of Robert. Mr. Miller, you say you used the $100,000 as temporary working capital. However, according to these records, between May and October of last year, you made 5 transfers to your personal account, each for $20,000. And after each transfer, there is a significant expense. For example, on the 16th of May, you transferred $20,000, and on the 18th of May, you transferred $3,000 to Miss Holly. On the 10th of June, you transferred $20,000, and on the 12th of June, you bought a handbag for over $5,000. All the records are here. How do you explain that? Robert took the accounting ledgers, his fingers trembled, and his face grew paler and paler. Those are normal business expenses, he stammered. It's not money I spent on her. Normal expenses? The lawyer took out another stack of documents. This is the statement from your personal account provided by the bank. Between May and December of last year, you transferred money to Miss Holly a total of 8 times, totaling more than $40,000. The origin of this money is the $100,000 you transferred from the joint account, and the items you bought for her with the authorized user card total more than $15,000. All the receipts are recorded at the bank. Do you still maintain that these are normal expenses? Seeing the evidence on the table, Robert's hands began to shake. His conciliatory attitude disappeared, and he raised his voice. Audrey, do you have to go to these extremes? What do you gain by fighting over $100,000? We were husband and wife. Can't you concede a little? Concede to you? I looked at him. I felt nothing. If I concede to you, who concedes to me? I lived with you for 20 years, saving, while you committed adultery, diverted our assets, and treated me like an idiot. And now you ask me to concede? Do you really think that's possible? The lawyer intervened. Mr. Miller, according to the law, if during the marriage one of the spouses unilaterally disposes of or sells marital assets, at the time of divorce they may receive a smaller or even no share. You diverted $100,000 of marital assets and used them for the benefit of a third party. It is a clearly illegal act. My client demands the full return of the $100,000 and the division of the house and the car. If you do not agree, we will file a lawsuit. Then, you will not only have to return the money, but also pay the costs of the trial, and your credit history will be affected. Robert's face went completely white. He slumped into the chair, looking at the evidence on the table, without saying anything for a long time. Suddenly he stood up and pointed at me. Audrey, you are a harpy. I knew you didn't come with good intentions. You just wanted to steal my assets. You'll see. This isn't going to end here. Having said that, he grabbed his jacket and left, without even paying for the coffee. Watching his pathetic figure walk away, I sighed in relief. All the tension had vanished. See? The lawyer said, putting the evidence back in the briefcase. He was just trying to manipulate you into giving up your rights. Thank goodness we had the evidence. Now, we will wait for the investigation order, get the information about his accounts, and present it to the court so he returns the assets as soon as possible. Leaving the coffee shop, the sun shone warmly. I felt strangely at peace. Before, I had always been afraid that Robert would try some trick. Now, with a lawyer and the evidence in hand, no matter what he did, I could confront him. I sent a message to Leslie telling her what had happened. "Well done," she replied instantly. "That will teach him that you're not a fool. On Monday, when you start working, I'll stop by the store to cheer you on." Reading her message, I smiled. I was no longer the weak and submissive woman I used to be. I had the support of my friends, the protection of the law, and a new job about to begin. I was confident that from now on, things could only get better. I wouldn't let those horrible people and their problems affect me anymore. I was finally going to live for myself, a full and free life. Returning from the coffee shop, I held the briefcase with the perfectly organized documents. As soon as I entered the house, my old cat ran to rub against my legs, meowing. I left the vegetables that the store owner had given me in the kitchen and poured him a little more food. Seeing him eat peacefully helped to dissipate the discomfort that Robert's deception had left me with. Just as I finished tidying up, I received a call from Leslie. "How was the meeting with your ex?" she asked as soon as I answered. "Did he try any of his tricks?" I told her with a smile everything that had happened that afternoon. How Robert had tried to act nice so I would give up my rights. And how, when the lawyer presented the evidence, he had been speechless and had fled pathetically. Leslie laughed out loud. "He deserves it. That will take down his ego." "Hey, I have something to tell you. Do you remember the hotel manager I told you about? My client at the store? He came in to buy something today, and I brought up your ex's wedding. It turns out he's the one responsible for that event, so he knows all the reservation details. Do you want me to ask him about anything specific?" My heart skipped a beat. I had already thought that if I could find out the time, place, and guest list, I could show up at the wedding and expose Robert in front of his friends and family. Having the opportunity to get that information from the hotel manager himself was perfect. However, I hesitated a little. But he's the manager. Can he reveal client information? I don't want him to get into trouble because of me. Relax, I trust him. He's not uptight, Leslie said, laughing. When I told him about your ex, the adultery, and the money diversion, he felt very sorry for you. He told me that guys like that need to be taught a lesson. I've already arranged to meet him. Tomorrow at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, in a coffee shop near the hotel, he will tell you all the details. You just have to go. The next day, I arrived at the coffee shop 10 minutes early. I had just found a seat by the window when I saw a middle-aged man in a hotel uniform walk in. Medium build and wearing glasses, he seemed very calm. It was him, no doubt. I quickly stood up to greet him. "Hello, I'm Leslie's friend." The manager smiled, sat down, ordered a tea, and got straight to the point. "Hello, Leslie already brought me up to speed. Don't worry. Within what the hotel rules allow, I will help you as much as I can. Your ex-husband's wedding was booked on the 18th of last month. It will be held in our largest ballroom, with capacity for 50 tables. Each table costs $600. Adding the space rental, service, master of ceremonies, and lighting, the total exceeds $100,000. I took out a notebook and wrote everything down. I was becoming more and more certain. And how much did they pay as a deposit? When is the wedding? They only paid $10,000, he said, taking a sip of tea. According to the hotel rules for an event of this caliber, the deposit must be at least 20% of the total, which is $20,000. But your ex-husband begged us, saying he had liquidity problems. And in the end, we accepted the $10,000 on the condition that he pay the rest within 1 week. He still hasn't done it, The wedding is on the 18th of this month, in 10 days. Yesterday we called him to remind him, and he asked for 3 more days. If he hasn't paid by then, he will lose the $10,000 deposit, and the wedding will be cancelled. Hearing this, I felt great satisfaction. Robert, who couldn't even pay the deposit, had promised his mistress a luxury wedding, all bark and no bite. And the guest list? Do you know who's coming? He hasn't given us the complete list yet, but I know some of the important names, he said thoughtfully. He told me he would invite more than 300 people, including his most important clients, friends, and family. Oh, and he specifically asked us to reserve the best table next to the couples for the bride's parents. He wanted to make a good impression on them. I wrote everything down in my notebook. Is the master of ceremonies provided by the hotel or hired by him? We provide him. He's our best presenter. He has a lot of experience, he said. I've already warned him. I told him that if anything happens, he should cooperate as much as possible. Without making it too obvious, of course. After all, I work for the hotel. I was deeply moved. Thank you very much. Without your help, I wouldn't have been able to find out all these details. You're welcome. I don't like men like that either, he said, smiling. Don't worry. Within what the rules allow, I will help you. Oh, I have a copy of the reservation contract, with the signature, date, place, and cost breakdown. I brought you a copy, in case you need it. I took the copy of the contract. Everything matched what the manager had told me. Robert's scribbled signature was even there. I felt even more confident. After chatting a little more and thanking him again for his help, I left the coffee shop. As soon as I left, I called Leslie and told her everything. That's great, she said excitedly. Now we know everything. If he hasn't even paid the deposit, maybe there won't even be a wedding. And if there is, we can show up there and expose him in front of his clients and friends. Yes, I said, smiling. I even have a copy of the contract, with his signature and the quote. When I show it, everyone will see that he's a fraud. I hung up and called the lawyer. I explained the situation to him and asked if it was legal to present the evidence at the wedding to expose Robert. Yes, you can do that, he said, but with moderation. You cannot disturb the peace of the hotel, or you could have problems. The best way is that when the master of ceremonies asks the couple if they accept each other, you stand up and present the evidence. That way, without causing a scene, you will achieve the maximum impact. I wrote down the lawyer's advice. In my head, the plan was already set. On the day of the wedding, at the key moment, I would show up with the evidence and reveal everything. Robert's adultery, the diversion of assets, and the failure to pay the deposit. I would make him and his mistress look ridiculous in front of everyone. Let everyone see his true face. Returning home, I put the notebook and the copy of the contract in the briefcase along with the other evidence. My cat jumped onto the table and rubbed against my hand, as if giving me encouragement. I stroked his head. I felt full of confidence. If Robert and his family had tormented me, now it was their turn to pay the consequences. In the following days, while I was getting familiar with my new job at the store, I waited for the results of the lawyer's investigation order. The owner and my colleagues were very kind. Despite knowing my situation, they never judged me. On the contrary, they always helped me, so I would have time to prepare my plan. Every night, upon returning home, I checked the evidence to make sure nothing was missing. Transfer statements, card receipts, the wedding contract, the recordings of the threats from Robert and his family, the screenshots of the conversation with the mistress. Everything was there. Those were my weapons, and I knew that with them I could rip the mask off Robert and his mistress. 3 days before the wedding, the lawyer called me. The investigation order had arrived, and they had already checked the information about Robert's account at the bank. Of the $100,000 he had diverted, 40,000 he had transferred to his mistress, and the other 60,000 he had used to pay gambling debts. Not only had he committed adultery, but he was also a compulsive gambler. It was an unexpected discovery. If I revealed that at the wedding, the humiliation would be even greater. I hung up and looked at the evidence on the table. I felt completely secure. I knew that in 3 days, what was supposed to be a day of celebration for Robert and his mistress would become the day of their greatest shame. I eagerly awaited that day, the day they would pay for everything they had done. I was at the store, arranging the merchandise. My hands were still wet from having been cleaning some apples. The new shipment that morning was incredibly fresh and red. Following the owner's instructions, I had set aside the ones that were slightly bruised to sell them cheaper to the elderly people in the neighborhood. Suddenly, my cell phone rang in my apron pocket. I took it out and saw that it was Robert's number again. I knew instantly. He had smelled something. There were only 3 days left until the wedding. Just the day before, the lawyer had called me to tell me that in addition to the $40,000 transferred to his mistress, they had tracked a withdrawal of $60,000 in cash that had ended up in a casino account. It was proof that he had used that money to pay gambling debts. I printed that evidence and added it to the rest of the documents. My intention was to unleash everything at the wedding to give him no escape. I dried my hands and went to a corner of the store to answer. As always, I activated the recorder. With him, no caution was too much. "Audrey, what the hell are you plotting behind my back?" His voice, on the other end, was a shout that pierced my ear. He sounded even angrier than the time I exposed him at the coffee shop. In the background, I heard his mistress complaining. They were surely arguing about the deposit money. "I'm warning you. Don't you dare think I won't find out. You plan to come to my wedding to cause a scene, don't you? Well, not in your dreams. If you dare to set foot there, you'll be sorry." I leaned on the doorframe, watching the neighbors enter and leave the store, and I purposely lowered my voice to sound intimidated. "What are you talking about? What time would I have to cause a scene? I'm swamped with work at the store. I don't have time to think about your things. Don't try to fool me. I don't believe you." His voice became more urgent. "Someone from the hotel told me. Someone has been asking about the details of my wedding. Who else could it be but you? And my mother told me that yesterday at the market, the neighbors told her you hired a lawyer to sue me. Are you planning to humiliate me at my wedding? Audrey, I'm warning you. Don't cross the line. We're already divorced. Do you really want this to end so badly?" I smiled inwardly. He had found out something, and that's why he was so nervous. I sighed on purpose, with a tone of voice that sounded offended. "I hired a lawyer for the asset issue, not to ruin your wedding. Besides, your wedding is a happy day. Why would I go and spoil the party? Don't worry. I won't go that day. I have to work. The store is packed. Really, swear it." His voice softened, but the distrust was still noticeable. "If you dare to deceive me, I'll go to your store and make sure you can never open it again." "Why would I deceive you?" I lowered my voice, feigning fear that the owner would hear me. "It took me a lot to find this job. I just want to work peacefully and not get into more trouble. Get married peacefully, I won't bother you." He asked me more questions to make sure I wouldn't go. He even asked me to swear it. I played along. "I swear, I won't go." On the other end of the line, I heard a sigh of relief, and I even heard him tell his mistress, "See? I told you she wouldn't dare to come." I almost laughed out loud. The idiot really believed I was afraid of him coming to my store to cause a scene. If he dared, I would call the police instantly. With the warning he already had, he wouldn't risk it. I hung up, saved the recording, and sent a copy to the lawyer and Leslie. In less than 2 minutes, Leslie called me. "What a bastard," she said as soon as I answered. "He still dares to threaten you. And you're such a good actress. I almost believed you too." "I had to act a little so he would relax," I said, smiling. "Now he's convinced that I'm afraid and won't go to the wedding. That way, when I suddenly appear, he won't have time to react. Hey, and what about the hotel manager? How will we get in that day?" "I talked to him yesterday. He told me he will send an employee to look for you and give you an identification badge." "You will enter with her through the service door and wait behind the ballroom," Leslie said. He also alerted the master of ceremonies. "When he asks the couple if they promise to be together in richness and in poverty, he will pause and give you a signal. That will be your moment." I felt even more secure. I reviewed with Leslie the evidence I would bring that day. In addition to the transfer statements, the card receipts, and the wedding contract, I had the new evidence of the gambling debts. I organized everything in order in a black briefcase. As I hung up, the lawyer also sent me a message. "I will be at the hotel half an hour before that day. If any unforeseen event arises, for example, if Mr. Miller sends someone to block your way, I will take care of it." He also sent me the number of the nearest police station so I could call at any time. In the afternoon, upon leaving work, the owner, who had seen me glued to my phone all day, asked me worriedly. I briefly told her the situation. She patted my hand and said, "Audrey, don't be afraid. If you need help, I'll tell my husband to go with you. He's big and has an imposing voice. He'll surely scare them off." My heart filled with gratitude. "No, really, you don't need to bother your husband. I'm going with a friend and the lawyer. Don't worry." Even so, the owner, not very convinced, gave me a bag with hard-boiled eggs that she had just cooked. "Here, so you can eat on the way and gain strength. That day will be hard." Returning home, my old cat was waiting for me at the door. I left the briefcase on the table and reviewed everything again, one by one. The more than 20 pages of transfer statements, with the date and amount clearly indicated. The card receipts, organized by month and with the mistress's expenses circled. The wedding contract, on top for easy access. The proof of gambling debts, in the middle, the most powerful evidence. I looked for an old recorder and transferred the audios of the threats from Robert and his family, in case my phone ran out of battery. I also fully charged an external battery and put it in a side pocket. When I finished, I sat on the sofa. My old cat curled up on my lap, purring softly. I stroked his fur. I didn't feel a hint of anxiety. Before, Robert's threats kept me awake. Now, I was incredibly calm, and even felt a certain anticipation. I knew that day would not only be the day I exposed Robert, but also the day I completely broke with my past and started a new life. He wanted an over-the-top wedding to show off. I, in front of everyone, would reveal his true, selfish, adulterous, and compulsive gambler face. I would make him understand that those who torment me pay the consequences. Before going to bed, I sent a message to the hotel manager to confirm that he had prepared the identification badge for me. "Don't worry," he replied. "Everything is ready." I put down my phone, looked at the moonlight through the window, and thought, "You'll see. Your mask will fall off soon." That morning, I woke up earlier than usual. I chose an elegant dark jacket with a light grey sweater underneath. I didn't want to draw attention, but I didn't want to look sloppy either. I just wanted, as calmly as possible, to say what I had to say. Before leaving the house, I checked the briefcase 3 times. Transfer statements, card receipts, the wedding contract, the debt evidence, the recorder, the external battery. Nothing was missing. My old cat, sitting by the door, rubbed against my shoes, as if encouraging me. "I'll be back," I whispered, stroking his head. As agreed, I arrived near the hotel an hour early. The lawyer was already waiting for me on the sidewalk, with a black leather briefcase containing copies of all the evidence. A few minutes later, Leslie arrived. She had even brought a small folding chair, in case I got tired of standing. We sat down for a moment at a nearby store. The lawyer went over the plan with me one more time. "In a little while, you will enter with the employee through the service door and wait in a corner behind the ballroom. When the master of ceremonies gives you the signal, stand up, but without rushing. Present the evidence one by one. First the contract, then the statements, and finally play the recording songs. Don't lose your rhythm." At 30 minutes past 10 o'clock, the employee the manager had sent arrived. She was a young girl, about 20 years old, who handed me an identification badge. "Ma'am, follow me." The manager told me to wait for a moment in the lounge area in the back. "When the master of ceremonies is about to start the vows, I will come for you." I followed her. In the hallway, I could hear the music coming from the ballroom. A mix of cheerful songs and the laughter of the guests created a festive atmosphere that greatly contrasted with the heavy briefcase I was carrying. The lounge area was not big. It only had 2 sofas. The girl poured me a glass of lukewarm water. "Don't be nervous." The manager told me that if anything happens, I should call him. I nodded and took the glass. My hands were a little cold, but my heart was firm. The ones who should be nervous were not me, but the couple who on the stage were performing a farce. Around 30 minutes past 11 o'clock, the music outside suddenly changed. The cheerful songs gave way to the soft wedding march. The girl entered through the door. "Ma'am, the couple has already entered. In 10 minutes, the master of ceremonies will begin the vows." I stood up, wiggled my fingers, and left the zipper of the briefcase slightly open so I could easily take out the evidence. Shortly after, through the slightly open door, I heard the master of ceremonies' voice, warm and clear. "Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, today is a day of celebration for the happy couple. In the presence of your loved ones, I ask you, do you promise that from today, in richness and in poverty, in health and in sickness, you will love and respect each other and never abandon each other?" It was the moment. My heart raced. I followed the girl out of the lounge area and discreetly entered the ballroom through a back door. The guests in the back rows, focused on the stage, barely noticed me. I advanced slowly through the aisle. About 7 or 8 meters from the stage, the master of ceremonies asked again, "Bride and groom, do you agree?" Robert, in an impeccable suit and a radiant smile, was about to answer. "I don't agree." My voice, although not very loud, was enough for those around me to hear. "He won't agree. If he hasn't even paid the deposit for this wedding, by what right is he going to promise not to abandon anyone?" My words caused a deathly silence in the ballroom. The music stopped. All eyes were fixed on me. Robert's smile froze on his face. He turned to look at me, his eyes wide. "Oh, Audrey, what are you doing here? You said you wouldn't come." "And you believed it?" I said, as I advanced step by step until I was standing in front of the stage. I took the wedding contract out of the briefcase and showed it to everyone. "Look at this contract. It clearly specifies here that the total cost of this wedding exceeds $100,000 and that the deposit should have been $20,000. However, he only paid $10,000, and to this day, he still owes the rest. Yesterday, the hotel called him to demand payment, threatening to cancel the wedding. He promised the bride a luxury wedding, and he told all of you that he was a successful man. But the reality is that he didn't even have the money to pay the deposit. If that's not deceiving you, what is? A murmur ran through the ballroom. The guests started whispering. Really? A wedding without having paid the deposit? What a phony. The mistress, in her white wedding dress, looked like all her makeup was about to run. She grabbed Robert's arm and whispered to him, "Robert, is what that woman is saying true? You told me you had already paid the deposit." Robert, nervous, pointed at me and shouted, "Liar. I paid for everything a long time ago. That contract is fake. You came here to cause a scene." Fake? I took out the hotel bank statement, which clearly showed a deposit of only $10,000. Well, look at this. It's the hotel statement. Only $10,000 was deposited. Where is the $20,000? If you've paid for everything, show the transfer receipt. Robert turned red as a tomato. He put his hands in his pockets, but he didn't take out any evidence. He couldn't. At that moment, my mother-in-law, sitting in the front row, stood up and pointed at me, shouting, "Damn harpy! You came on purpose to ruin my son's wedding. I'm going to kill you." She tried to lunge at me, but the lawyer stopped her. "Ma'am, calm down. Let's talk things through calmly. If you try to assault her, we will call the police." Blocked by the lawyer, my mother-in-law threw herself onto the floor and started crying and screaming. But this time, no one paid attention to her. All the guests were focused on Robert's story. Ignoring my mother-in-law, I took out another stack of documents, the evidence of the asset diversion. And look at this. Between May and October of last year, he diverted $100,000 of our joint assets to his personal account. Of that money, $40,000 he used to buy handbags, necklaces, and the wedding dress for the person here present. The other $60,000 to pay gambling debts. You probably didn't know this, but not only is he an adulterer, but he is also a compulsive gambler with considerable debts. Those $100,000 were the money we had saved together. The money my parents gave me, and the money I earned working hard in the business. And he, without saying a word to me, diverted it to spend it on this. Tell me, do you think he has the right to utter the words, "Never abandon you"? Hearing this, the murmur in the ballroom turned into a clamor. Some of Robert's relatives frowned. Robert also gambles. That's not good. And using his wife's money for his mistress. How despicable. The mistress's face was completely white. She let go of Robert's hand and said, in a trembling voice, "You lied to me. You told me that money was yours and that you had gambling debts." Robert tried to justify himself, but he stammered, unable to articulate a word. Sweat poured down him. I took out my cell phone, played the recording of his threats, and turned up the volume. And listen to this. It's a call from last week threatening me. "If you don't reactivate the credit cards, I'll come to your house every day to cause a scene, and I won't let you live in peace." And I also have recordings of his mother and sister coming to my house to break my things. Tell me, does this seem like a way to get along? The insults and snarls on the recording clearly resonated in the ballroom. The guests' gazes toward Robert changed, going from celebration to contempt. One of his most important clients stood up. "Robert, I thought you were a trustworthy man. That's why I did business with you. But not only have you cheated on your wife, but you are also a compulsive gambler. This deal is over." Having said that, he turned and left. Several more clients stood up, shaking their heads, and followed him. Seeing the scene, the mistress burst into tears. She tore off her veil and threw it onto the floor. "It's over. You lied to me. You didn't have money and you promised me a luxury wedding. You're a swindler." She ran to get off the stage, but her dress got caught on a chair, and she fell to the floor. The dress, now dirty with dust, made her look pathetic. Robert ran to help her, but she pushed his hand away and ran out of the ballroom crying. Little by little, the guests also started leaving. Some, as they passed, pointed at Robert. What a shame. It's better not to deal with people like that. My mother-in-law was still sitting on the floor, crying to the heavens. Zoe, beside her, was pale and said nothing. The master of ceremonies on the stage was paralyzed, with the microphone in his hand. He had officiated many weddings, but he had never seen such chaos. The hotel manager came out from behind the stage, approached Robert, and handed him a bill. "Mr. Miller, the deposit is still pending payment. And now that the wedding has ended like this, you will have to take responsibility for the hotel's losses. Several of the guests who left did not touch the food on their tables. You will also have to pay for those meals." The bitterness I had endured for 20 years had finally dissipated today. From now on, my life would no longer revolve around a horrible man and a wicked mother-in-law. I wouldn't have to put up with it anymore. I could work peacefully and live in peace. I was finally going to live for myself. Epilogue: Life after the storm. That day, returning from the hotel, the sun cast a long shadow at my feet. Leslie handed me a bottle of iced tea. Opening it and taking a sip, the fresh, sweet flavor ran down my throat, and I felt that the rage accumulated over 20 years had finally dissolved. The lawyer told me that he would file the evidence again with the court to request a writ of execution. The goal was for Robert to return the $100,000 he had diverted, the compensation for damages to the hotel, and the assets that had not yet been divided, as soon as possible, without leaving a single cent behind. The three of us didn't stay long. We went to a small restaurant, ordered 3 bowls of hot chili, and as we ate, no one mentioned Robert's family. It wasn't worth it. About 2 weeks later, the lawyer called me. The court had issued the writ of execution. Robert had a 15-day deadline to return the $100,000, pay the hotel about $8,000 in compensation, since, after the disaster, the hotel had to return some deposits and clean the ballroom and divide the assets. "And if he doesn't pay?" I asked. "Do you think he'll dare not to pay?" The lawyer laughed. "His construction materials business, without clients, closed a while ago. Furthermore, he owes a supplier more than $10,000. If he doesn't pay us, the court will seize the car that is in his name. Then he won't even have a means of transportation." Later, I found out from the neighbors that Robert had to sell the car to pay his debts. He got a little more than $20,000. A part he paid to us, another to the supplier, and with what was left, he couldn't even pay the rent. In the end, he moved to a small, dark basement on the outskirts, nothing like the ostentatious man he used to be. Someone saw him at the market, in an old, faded jacket, hesitating in front of a cheap vegetable stand. Nothing was left of that businessman. He tried to find work as a delivery driver, but no one wanted to hire him. His reputation as an adulterer and compulsive gambler had spread. With his reputation ruined, his future was bleak. As for the mistress, Holly, after running out of the wedding crying, she never contacted Robert again. A friend of Leslie's saw her in a supermarket in her town, in an employee uniform, pushing a cart and restocking shelves. There were no more shiny necklaces or designer handbags. Apparently, upon returning home and telling everything, her mother gave her a good reprimand and told her to stop dreaming of living off men and find a decent job. The rumor is that she is now dating a warehouse worker from the supermarket. A normal life, but at least she no longer dreams of luxury weddings. She surely learned that appearances built with other people's money, sooner or later, collapse. The situation of my mother-in-law and Zoe was not much better. My mother-in-law's $600 pension before went entirely to her son and daughter. Now, with the son drowning in debts and the daughter having no one to extract money from, they began to blame each other. Once at the market, I saw them arguing. "It's all your fault, Mum," Zoe said. "For enabling my brother in everything, he became an adulterer. Now look at the consequences. I can't even buy a new dress." "And what about you?" my mother-in-law replied, crying. "If you hadn't been taking money from him every day, we wouldn't have reached this point." They argued loudly with red faces, while passers-by looked at them, but no one stopped them. The neighbors had seen how they tormented me. Now their situation was the result of their own actions. Later, I found out that my mother-in-law was admitted to the hospital. Zoe didn't pay the bill, and Robert didn't have any money. In the end, some lifelong friends of my mother-in-law took up a collection to pay the expenses. Upon leaving the hospital, my mother-in-law lived alone, and sadly in her old house, without a trace of her former pride. My life, on the other hand, improved every day. After half a year working at the store, the owner, happy with my work, not only raised my salary to $3,000, but also put me in charge of order management and inventory. Later, she hired 2 part-time employees, so I wouldn't have to go for the merchandise so early. The neighbors loved shopping at our store. They said the vegetables I chose were fresh and inexpensive. Sometimes, if an elderly person forgot their money, I would tell them to take the produce and pay me another day. Over time, I became friends with everyone. Miss Betty, for example, came every day for vegetables and sometimes brought me scones that she baked herself. Mr. John liked slightly overripe apples, so I always saved some for him. In my free time, I would walk with Leslie in the park, or we would go on weekend trips. Last fall, we went to see the autumn colours of the trees. Standing on the top of a hill, looking at the forest of red leaves and feeling the cool breeze, I felt incredibly at peace. My old cat also got fatter. Robert looked at the empty ballroom, then the bill in his hand, and suddenly his legs gave out, and he almost fell. "It's over," he murmured. "Everything is over." Seeing him, I felt not a bit of compassion, only an immense sense of liberation. I put the evidence in the briefcase, looked at the lawyer and Leslie, and turned to leave. As I passed by my mother-in-law, she was still crying. I didn't stop or look back. First, no matter who you live with, always keep all the receipts and documents for the house. Don't think, as I did before, that trust is enough in a marriage. When you have to defend your rights, those are the most effective pieces of evidence. If I hadn't kept the accounting ledgers and the card receipts, I would never have recovered that money. Second, if someone mistreats you, don't put up with it. If you concede once, they will see you as a weak person, and the next time will be worse. Every afternoon when I returned from work, he was waiting for me at the door, and as soon as I opened it, he would run to rub against my legs, sometimes bringing me a toy so I would play with him. Before, the house was always full of arguments. Now, I finally lived in silence. Once, Miss Betty told me that her daughter argued a lot with her husband, that he mistreated her, and she didn't know how to defend herself. After thinking for a moment, based on my own experience, I gave her some advice. Economic independence gives you a voice and stability. Fourth, a true friend is worth more than anything. If Leslie hadn't found me a lawyer and a job throughout this time, if the lawyer hadn't defended my rights, if the store owner hadn't supported me, I would never have gotten through it. Surround yourself with good friends and help each other in difficult times. Life will be much easier. And fifth, if a marriage is irreparable, don't cling to it. It's better to cut your losses. I endured 3 more years with my ex-husband, and every day was more bitter and painful. After the divorce, I went through many difficulties, But my life is now 100 times more peaceful. Life is only a few decades long. Don't torment yourself over someone who is not worth it. Miss Betty, after listening to me, nodded. You're right. Before I thought that by putting up with it a little, things would pass. Now I see that they won't. These words were lessons I had learned the hard way, realizing what was important after losing it, learning to live after having suffered. Now, every morning, I arrive at the store early. I arrange the fresh vegetables and fruits. Seeing the neighbors come to shop and chat happily fills me with satisfaction. At night, when I close the store and return home, I prepare myself a bowl of hot soup, with my old cat keeping me company. Seeing the streetlights turn on through the window, I feel that life, truly, is worth living. I know that everything horrible I went through was like a nightmare, but the nightmare is over, and dawn has broken. From now on, I will live for myself. A happy, peaceful, and much better life than before. And so, friends, concludes Audrey's journey, a story with an ending where justice is not an abstract concept, but a palpable reality. The traitor fell, the greedy paid their price, and our brave protagonist found true peace in her new life. But this story leaves us with something more than satisfying revenge. It shows us the extraordinary power of preparation and determination. Audrey's victory was not a stroke of luck. It was forged in the meticulous accounting ledgers, the carefully saved receipts, and the record button pressed at the right moment. Those were the silent weapons she accumulated during her years of patience. And when she finally reached her limit, they became irrefutable evidence that completely demolished her ex-husband's lie and arrogance. Furthermore, Audrey's greatest victory was not the moment she exposed Robert at the wedding, but the peaceful mornings at the organic products store, the warm afternoons in the company of her old cat, and the freedom of being financially independent and the owner of her own life. She proved that the best revenge is not to make the other person suffer, but to build an infinitely happier life for oneself. Audrey's story leaves us with a profound lesson. Never underestimate the silence of a woman, because when she decides she won't endure any more, her strength can move mountains, and the light of truth will finally overcome the darkness. Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. See you in the next story.